go.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker. What do you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Clark from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Let me tell you this. If there is one day in the month of March you feel like taking off, and especially that being a Tuesday, damn straight, this is it. What a not a cloud in the sky. Nothing but blue going on. Afternoon, downtown Indy. And then there's all this other stuff happening, right? You've got the Big Ten Conference Tournament on the inbound, which begins coming up tomorrow. You've got Bucks and Pacers later on tonight. You got all this stuff. You got a lovely lady filming me right now, which is even, I'm sorry to mess that up with my grill right here, but it's so glorious out. I'll try to stay out of the way, and you get the really good shots that you're looking for right there. But the best place to be on a day like today is downtown, and if you've never been a part of Pivot, this is it. The Pivot Bar and Balcony, the second floor of the Hyatt House, right across Gainbridge Fieldhouse, right over on the other side of Pennsylvania right there. This is awesome. So if you're going to the game later on tonight, then I would love to see you down here. We would love to hang out with you. Rob and I are going to have probably a couple of cocktails as we hang out together here. We have a great list of guests for you as well. We've got Ethan, we've got Kevin, we've got my man Dev, and then James. Unfortunately for James, is back at the studio. But this is what really gets you going. This is why days like today are the ones that you have to take advantage of. So take advantage of today, this Tuesday, with me, and join me at Pivot Bar and Balcony. I promise you will be incredibly happy that you did. I mean, in a week where you're going to come correct with a lot of decisions, this is the best decision you can obviously make. All right, speaking of decisions, we've got a lot of Colts decisions to get to, don't we? Daniel Jones finally is going to be a member of the Colts. $14 million, and people were saying, wow, you overpaid. Again, they are going to go with Anthony Richardson until he's injured, which he will be, or otherwise proves unsatisfactory. But that is going to be the going rate, which is incredible. I think everybody needs to be a quarterback and become a quarterback today. To get $14 million and have the resume of Daniel Jones, it's absolutely incredible. It is. But Daniel Jones comes in as the backup. The Colts suggest that is going to be the competition. As I have told you, I think the competition aspect is completely overblown because it is going to be the Anthony Richardson way or the highway for everybody. And as I had mentioned, if not Richardson, why are we jacking with any of this? Right? Why are you going with year number 9 of Chris Ballard? Why are you going with year number 3 with Shane Steichen? Why are you going with year number 3 for Anthony Richardson if it is not going to be his gig? Believe me, there's nobody out there that has been non-believing like me regarding Anthony Richardson. There is no doubt he has to prove it to you, but to suggest they're going to go through the offseason and the workouts and then training camp, and then all of a sudden they may come to the realization that Daniel Jones is better and going to start the season, like, come on. Are you kidding me? Can you imagine? So you have to have an adequate backup. And who knows, maybe Daniel Jones will turn out to be an adequate backup. And believe me, I'm not mad at the move because you have to go get somebody. And the reason why you have to go get somebody, because at some point, Anthony Richardson is going to be injured and going to be unavailable. So you have to have somebody. So you have today Daniel Jones joining the club with Joe Flacco of a year ago and Gardner Minshew with the year prior of guys that are coming in. Only in this case, the Colts have positioned themselves as telling you what you want to hear. You want to hear about positional competition because that was something that a year ago they alluded to wasn't there. And that is something that has supposed to have been a part of the foundational building blocks of the Chris Ballard era. That was one of the first things that we heard going back 8 years ago. And it was, this is what I'm going to do. I want to create competition at every position. We want to have depth. So in year number 8, that is problematic. And your position statement is we're going to have some competition. So what, you're going to go Daniel Jones in the second quarter, Anthony Richardson in the first, and then, you know, are you going to keep other starters in the game to play with? How's the competition going to go? You're going to have preseason game competition? I mean, come on now. It's going to start with Richardson, and then if it goes as we have seen, he'll either get injured or be inaccurate, and then they'll have to replace him at some point. And the price you have to pay to get that, with the market that we're staring at right now, is $14 million for Daniel Jones. That's the cut in the dry. I mean, what else out there? Jameis Winston, Trey Lance, Marcus Mariota. Who else out there? I mean, really, at this point, you're just kind of throwing darts at a dartboard. You go with the guy, in this case, that is younger in a lot of respects and has been through it in similar respects. Not good, not performed well, and really part of the reason why he's no longer in New York is going to be similar reasons as to why Anthony Richardson may only be 3 and done here. But you had to have somebody, and that was the somebody. And we'll see how all this cobbles together coming up as, again, I sit here before you right now telling you I'm not at all willing to persuade you not to be excited about moves. But I will tell you that the ultimate gauge is when the season starts. How many years running have the Colts won in a lot of aspects in the offseason or won in the draft? I mean, you're not winning anything right now. What you need to see is the translation to the product on the field. That's the expectation. James Boyd going to join us. We'll go over that. A couple of offensive linemen to the Vikings. Kind of weird, that entire dynamic right there. Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. As I had mentioned to you, Will Fries was going to get more on the open market, and there is no way in the world you can go Quentin Nelson that much, Will Fries that much at guard. All right, you have too many other aspects of this team that need to be better, and then you can worry about right guard with Matt Gonzalez, for example. Now that you lock down at least for one more year Braden Smith, what you have to do now is you slot in Bortolini at center, and then Gonzalez, I'm assuming, at guard, and then Braden Smith at right tackle. You have to go out there and find you some decent subs or swing guys because you know at some point somebody is going to be injured. You just know that on the offensive line. So we'll get to that. James Boyd of The Athletic in our morning show is going to join us coming up in a minute. And I don't mind on a day like today, it really bugs me to have to complain because there should be no complaints. This blue sky, like Ferris Bueller took a damn day off. It was June in suburban Chicago when Ferris Bueller took a day off like this, right? We have this in early March, which is glorious. But I am going to have to high-level complain about the team that plays later on tonight across the street because last night was about as unenthusiastic as a game to view as I have seen in a while. They have some issues. If that's how you look without one dude, and believe me, one dude is a big deal, but holy crap. Everybody else just comes completely unwound and undone without that one guy. Other team scores at will without arguably the worst defensive player on the team, not on the fly. I mean, come on. That's how you look? Just that uninspired, joyless looking, pushed around by the Chicago Bulls and excuses being made about, well, the Bulls are playing different and they're up-tempo. I mean, hell, the Bulls are playing model-wise like the Pacers Like, we're watching them get up and down the floor. Holy crap. So, yeah, we'll have to complain about that coming up just a little bit. We'll do that. JJ, in fact, probably going right now on his way down here going, wow, I don't know if I want to join him at Pivot Bar and Balcony if he's going to be complaining like that. But no, he'll be cool. He's going to join us coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. I'll give you the rundown of the show, which is big. Again, Pivot Bar and Balcony. We're downtown off of Pennsylvania in the Hyatt House across from Gainbridge Fieldhouse on this glorious day. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, had to get him in here early. It's the first time he's been on the show since assuming the morning show co-host position alongside Kevin Bowen, along with Jeff Rickard from The Athletic. James Boyd, he does join us. Hey, James, ultimately, do you look at Daniel Jones as it has to be somebody, so it might as well be him? Is that it?
That's partly how I look at it, but I also look at it like this guy could seriously contend for the starting job. Now, I'm still not buying it to the degree that maybe some others are. However, he's had more success than Anthony Richardson in the NFL. He's 27. He has dual threat capabilities. So I understand it. That's how I'll leave it.
So James Boyd on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. $14 million. I try to explain to people that he was going to be able to pick and choose either going back to Minnesota or coming here. And obviously you look at this, and if you want an opportunity to actually participate – and I know that J.J. McCarthy is coming off a rookie season where he was done for the season with an injury, and maybe you'll get a similar chance up in Minnesota. But certainly we have seen the evidence here. Your chance is going to be here. But $14 million was just going to be the going rate, even with the resume of a Daniel Jones so far in the NFL.
Absolutely. I mean, you saw Jimmy Garoppolo, I believe, got $11 million, and I think I might have predicted 13. So 14 sounds about right. It could go up to 17 with incentives. And obviously, if you're most Colts fans, I would say, you don't want him to hit those incentives because that means he's playing a lot. So the number is fine to me. I wouldn't trip too much about that. It's kind of just the cost of doing business with quarterbacks. I think the biggest thing is just how does Anthony Richardson respond to this? You want to challenge him. You want him to win the starting job. You know, one, is this a really open competition? Like, could Anthony Richardson lose his job before, week one of the season? Or either way, will he have a guy looking over his shoulder all year basically saying, if you slip up, that job is mine?
So James Boyd, the morning show. He's the co-host along with Jeff Rickard and Kevin Bowen, weekday mornings here on the Fan, 7 until 10 a.m. Also doing the other gig, he's a writer and covering the Colts and really a lot of aspects of Indy regarding Indianapolis sports from The Athletic. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So how do you think this competition that they want to phrase it, they want to position it, is going to go over the course of the offseason and then once we get into the summertime, James, for camp?
All right, so here's my take on it, and I've argued with Kevin Bowen about this and other people around the city. I think the real competition starts in week one, not during training camp or OTAs. Like, I truly believe Anthony Richardson could probably throw the ball in the dirt, 10 times in a row in training camp and still start in week one. Because I just cannot fathom this team moving off the number 4 pick 2 years after picking him before he starts another game for this team. Now, I say that also saying once week one rolls around and Anthony struggles and he has some turbulence, then I could see by week 4 if they pivot and say, hey, you know what? This guy's completion percentage is still pretty bad. He's not improved too much. We're trying to win games. We can't look Quentin Nelson and DeForest Buckner in the eye and tell them, hey, we're trying to win. Savarius Ward, our new additions, Cam Bynum, we can't tell these guys we're trying to win and start this dude. So I think that the real competition starts in week one with Anthony in the saddle, QB1, but also knowing that, again, if I slip up, if I mess up, and if I don't, perform, then Daniel Jones will be supplanting me pretty soon.
You think $14 million for Daniel Jones and that, James, ultimately being the Colts selection here, is that more about just the going rate, as I mentioned, or is it also about how they feel about Anthony Richardson right now? That, $14 million and a guy, even with that resume that's not great, but we got to have somebody in here and somebody maybe that you could argue in a really down market for quarterbacks this offseason, this free agency, might be the best of those guys. Did that also tell us a little bit about how the Colts presently feel regarding Richardson?
Yes, but I think it's more so. I know everyone's kind of harping on the inaccuracy, and obviously you had to get benched, you got to mature. I think it's the injuries that's really got them on edge, and it's probably why they invested this much in a backup. Like I know other people are saying, most teams wouldn't spend that much money, yeah, but most teams' starting quarterback, quote unquote, isn't a guy who's missed 17 games in 2 years. And so I think that is the biggest thing is, can we just get somebody in here who's been more durable? And I get it, Daniel Jones has tore his ACL in the past, but overall he's still been more available and more durable than Anthony Richardson. And I remember asking Chris Ballard at the Combine, I said, what's the difference between just bad luck for Anthony and injury prone? He was just saying, you know what, I knew the answer to all of that. I'll probably get every single player right. And so I think that is a very concerning issue for the team. And it just comes down to, can he stay out there too? Not to be mean, but JMV, if the guy gets hurt, Daniel Jones will win the job by default. So that's the other thing. Like, you have to play well. You also have to stay available.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned, too. It's inevitable from the evidence we've seen for the past 2 years that at some point that's going to happen, and you have to be best prepared for it. I don't know if you know anything or how much you have been told, but what was their level of interest in trying to bring Will Fries back compared to what ultimately was going to be his market value that clearly they did not want to pay?
Yeah, the Colts are pretty mum on most of these things. I can tell you that they did have interest in bringing him back. They did have interest in paying him, but I think that he just sort of priced himself out of their market. And then also I think that they were kind of thinking they made a line in the sand, I thought, yesterday when they allocated so much money to their defensive side of the ball and to the the secondary in particular. And once you do that, you're kind of, hard cap, so to speak, on how much money you can spend elsewhere. Assuming you're going to go get a quarterback as well, there just isn't enough money in the pot, in my opinion, to go pay a guy like Will Fries, who, again, good player. I believe he was their best in-house free agent that they let walk. But I don't necessarily blame them for that because this is a guy who, he's got 5 years, $88 million, over $17 million a year, but he only played 5 games last year. And he's been a good, right guard. He had a pretty good season in 2023. Solid season 24 before he got hurt, but it's not like this guy was, balling out, for 3 or 4 years. He kind of came on, and again, I think he's a good player, but I understand why they might have, been hesitant to pay him as much as some others would.
I kind of wondered if it was either going to be, in this case, Braden Smith or Will Fries, if that makes sense, and Gonzalez would end up sliding into one of those positions, and when it was evident that Braden Smith still wanted to play football and would come back at a lesser value deal. And then obviously once Fries hit that market and, they were not going to be willing to pay at that level, that made that decision rather easy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I looked at it like they didn't want 3 new starting offensive linemen. So obviously Ryan Kelly is joining Will Fries in Minnesota. They'll reunite together over there. But in an ideal world, you want all of them back, I would assume. Maybe not Ryan Kelly because of the price point, but you just didn't want to leave it to where you're rebuilding an entire, right side of your offensive line. So you do have some continuity up front with Braden Smith staying there. You get him back, obviously, at a cheaper price. And then now, Matt Gonzalez, I think that he's probably plan B. I think you also have to, don't get me wrong, you have to go out and probably sign a right guard or draft a right guard and get some depth. But plan B to start might be Matt Gonzalez moving back inside. I went back and read through some of his draft scouting reports. Our guy at The Athletic, Dane Brugler, actually said that, at the time, he projects like a guy who could move back inside and be a pretty solid guard. And so that was the thing on Matt Gonzalez coming out. Like, yes, he played a lot of tackle snaps in college, but the narrative was that he would be a guard in the NFL, so maybe he gets a shot this year.
It's James Boyd again of The Athletic, and of course on the morning show, Kevin Bowen and Jeff Rickard, weekday mornings here on The Fan. From 7 until 10 a.m., I'm going to bring you into this as well because the Pacers last night lose in Chicago 3 straight and then get the Bucks in what is arguably the most important game of the season on a Tuesday night later on tonight here at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. There's no way this team is as unwound as it looks without Tyrese Halliburton. I know that he is essential, and I'm taking nothing away from that. But that joyless-looking, pushed-around effort last night after the second quarter was an awful watch. And, I understand why Rick Carlisle felt the way Rick Carlisle did, because I think we all got sick and tired of watching that garbage.
Oh, yeah, it was nasty hoops, as they say. It was definitely bad and nasty hoops. It was not enjoyable. I got a kick out of reading your tweets yesterday, my man, because you were spot on. It looked a little, lifeless after that first quarter especially. And just defensively, I mean, I get it, Tyrese Halliburton isn't out there. What does it have to do with you all being so passive on defense and so late on rotations and just letting guys just beat you up in the paint? And obviously, what do you think Giannis is going to try to do tonight? Go in the paint and kick your butt. And at some point, you do have to draw that line in the sand to have some backbone to say enough is enough. And so I'm curious to see how they respond tonight with or without Halliburton, particularly on defense when it comes to, defensive rebounding and also defending the paint. You just can't let guys come into your home, kick their feet up on your couch, and do what they want.
The points in the paint explained is great because everybody automatically thinks, well, that's just lack of rim protection. And listen, Miles was a part of this mess last night. So, but these dudes also have a direct stinking line to the basket. And honestly, even when Halliburton's out there, it's not like he helps a great deal in that capacity. To me, what really is showing is their discombobulation and the ball sticking on offense. And then I think that leads to these guys and a lot of the listless defensive effort that we saw last night, which clearly is just unacceptable for this group.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I can hear my high school coach to this day, Jeff Van Buell, yelling at me because I let a guy cut over my face and cut in front of me, or I didn't, throw my elbow out and the guy's coming through the lane. Like, you see some of these straight line drives. I mean, they had Josh Giddey out there looking like Larry Bird. I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, this guy, I mean, he's a good player, but he's not that good. He has games like that, he's going to be all NBA. So I get the frustration. I do think that it's more like, just not having enough resistance on the perimeter that led to more pressure at the rim. I mean, Miles Turner is one of the best shot blockers in the league. Even he or Wembanyama or anybody can't block everything. You have to have some pride and keep a guy in front of you and also just talk. It seems like a lot of these guys are kind of out of position, and that leads to, over-rotating and, not being there to rebound, things like that. They just compound, your issues. And then you're already kind of behind the 8 ball because you're missing your best player. So you don't want to compound those things by being poor on defense. So we'll see how they respond tonight because, as you said, man, like this is a huge game, and everyone knows it. We talked to Rick Carl this morning on the morning show. I know he didn't really want to get into it, but we know, he knows, the players know this is a huge game.
I look at it this way. This is one of these games. Not only is it huge for how the dynamic plays out the rest of the regular season and the Eastern Conference standings, but it's huge for pride here. Because when you think about these last 3 games, and then that was like the cherry on top of the discombobulation last night in Chicago, if you don't see just one of the better efforts of the season, and hopefully and out there playing Halliburton later on tonight, then I think this team is in a lot more trouble than what we might give it credit for being right now. We may go ahead and say, well, road trip, blah, and make excuses. But if they go out there tonight and show the lack of pride that surfaced so often last night, really on both ends, but especially defensively, then I think we have more issues than anybody's talking about right now, James.
Yeah, so I'm looking right now. Tyrese Halliburton is questionable with the left hip flexor. And so we'll
get his ass in there
later on. Yeah,
get his ass in there. I think we're all questionable with a hip flexor. Get your ass out there. Let's get going.
Yeah, maybe they got some stuff that we don't have access to in the general public to make them feel good, but.
Yeah. Well, hey, James, I'll tell you the other thing, and to play off of that, if he doesn't play tonight with the magnitude of this game, then not only is there something serious wrong with his team, as I mentioned, but they're going to be looking at his situation even more seriously because this is the type of game. This is the reason why you don't play in 3 straight for a game like tonight.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he doesn't play tonight, knowing the stakes and knowing how competitive Tyrese is, I think at that point you do have to, ask more demanding questions. Hey, what's going on? What's his status? How's he feeling? Because right now everything's kind of touch and go. It's kind of vague. We'll see how he is. But we know Tyrese is a competitor. We know he loves the game. And so these are the moments that he lives for. And so if he isn't out there, that definitely is a question to be kind of concerned about. But then on top of that, man, like you said, at some point, someone else has to step up too and say, hey, you're more than just this one player. I'm not saying you go out there and, you blow out the Bucks, but I mean, you can't be in a position where your coach looks at the team and says, all of you come out and none of you are going back in. I mean, that to me was just like pure disgust, and rightfully so, from the effort that they put out there. And so we'll see how they respond, because in my opinion, as professionals, as competitors, they should respond, and most likely they will respond.
Yeah, listen, man, if I'd have been sitting next to the bench last night, he might have subbed my ass in. You know what I mean?
It was rough, man. I mean, you really see like the hockey sub changes and all that, that early in an NBA game.
You got it. Hey, well done on the morning show. Keep on keeping on and doing the same at The Athletic, man. We'll catch up again soon.
That's the plan. Thanks, man.
James Boyd of The Athletic and the Fan Morning Show with Kevin and Jeff. Weekday mornings here on the Fan, 7 until 10 a.m. A lot of Colts. Daniel Jones, the big story of the day. We'll double back to that. Get to your calls at 239-1070. Greg Rakestraw is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. Pivot Bar and Balconies, our location. Hyatt House, second story. We are on the balcony because this is the most glorious day of the year so far. This is something that you will want to take in. So bail out of work and join me here. Let's have some cocktails and then go over there and watch a much better effort than we witnessed last night in Chicago out of the blue and gold. You guys good to go? Greg Rakestraw joins us on the other side. Also, Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers TV, 4 o'clock hour. The head coach of Michigan, Dusty Mays, on the show later on today as well. Big Ten Conference Tournament underway tomorrow. And Tom Crean, the former Hoosier coach, the ESPN analyst, coming up at 5:30 today. Don't go anywhere. And if you're going someplace, hurry up and hustle ass and get to Pivot Bar and Balcony on this Tuesday. Would love to see you here. The stream, the app, HD Radio, 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
fart in your general direction. Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelled of elderberry.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
This show is at the glorious Pivot Bar and Balcony. We've been here twice. If you remember, we kicked off the Fever schedule and the debut of Caitlin Clark right here last year. I think one time we were inside, but this is a day when we're outside. I'm going to tell you what, for outdoor fun spaces, this cannot be beat anywhere in Indy, anywhere in the state. We're overlooking Pennsylvania, Gainbridge Fieldhouse right across the road, where the Pacers owe you a hell of a lot more than what you witnessed last night if you watched that Monday night at United Center in Chicago. So the Bucks and the Pacers tonight right across the street. Cocktails, beers, appetizers, hanging out at Pivot Bar and Balcony. That's where you need to be. We'll pregame together right here. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, our friend Greg Rakestraw joins us. And Greg, we have a very special guest hanging out with me today. You know this fella named Rob Albright, do you?
I do. Rob picking up your bar tab this afternoon?
He is. He came down here and said, you know what? I heard about how you like to drink, so I'm going to go ahead and pick up the entire bill of your cocktails that you have during the show on a Tuesday. And I said, yeah, okay, come on down, Rob.
Rob is going to pay for your half a drink that you will have during the show. Very good.
Yeah, half a drink, exactly. But no, good dude right there, and I know you guys have known one another for a number of years.
Just a little bit, and a salt-of-the-earth type of fella.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Hey, I do want to ask you this, post-game show host for the Colts. The work that has been done so far, including the storyline regarding Daniel Jones and his signing today. What are your thoughts?
I like the way the pieces are fitting together. Now, again, what is the ceiling of this group? I'm not sure. I think it's, make the playoffs or bust. I think that is possible, but they're checking off boxes. Obviously, they went young in the secondary, and it did not work. So you invest heavily in the secondary, buying them at safety, Ward at corner, and you've got, depth pieces, especially at corner, that can go around them, but you're not so reliant on the young guys. I don't think the free agent quarterback market was great. I think for the offense you're running and to actually have a backup quarterback or a quarterback competition, Daniel Jones is as akin to Anthony Richardson as any other quarterback that is out there. So now, in theory, you can play either quarterback and kind of play the system and not change things so dramatically. And I think on a one-year prove-it deal, it is a true quarterback competition that we are going to have between those two players. So I like that. The other thing that, because the free agency piece comes before the draft piece, what has not been addressed yet, the tight end position. What is hopefully available at pick number 14, help at the tight end position? What's the other area that's not been addressed yet? Pass rush. Again, there are more pass rushers on the market, and one that knows your new defensive coordinator better than anybody else, and you've got a team that's wanting to make a trade to clear that salary, and the Colts could be a player there too. So I would say through the first 24 to 36 hours of this, it's going well because you see the plan coming together for Chris Ballard and for this football team.
It's Greg Rakestraw is kind enough to join us on this incredible Tuesday. Pivot Bar and Balcony downtown's our location with 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Anything else you think they target here in free agency? You go safety and you go corner, and I'm assuming both those names were at the very top of the list. Now you got your quarterback, your backup quarterback, your competition, whatever. What do you think is going to be next for this group and what they're going to try to do here during free agency?
Well, again, I would love to see them make a play for Trey Hendrickson. I would love to see them make a play for a pass rusher. Again, there are more pass rushers on the market than there normally are. Obviously, the best one in Myles Garrett didn't get to market when we thought he was going to. And, yes, there is something to be said for Samson Ebukam returning. And, you've already got a guy under contract. There's also something to be said for the pass rush you can get from your defensive tackle position of Stewart and Buckner. But, again, those guys are starting to get a little bit older, on a year-by-year basis. So that's why I'd like to see the Colts maybe be proactive in terms of a trade to get a pass rusher But it's going to sound, I wouldn't say counterintuitive, but I think we all say that I'm not sure just how close this team is. Yet if you ask me, I don't think there's, frankly, a lot of positions where, it's not like they have to, address 12 different positions in the roster. It's 4 or 5 key ones. They have picked up a couple of those already, and now you're, in theory, a couple more from, again, are a 14-win team? No, but being a playoff team, which I think this group can get to.
It's Greg Rakestraw, kind enough to join us. So the backdrop where I am, you got Bucks Pacers later on tonight, but tomorrow is the start with 3 games in the first round of the Big Ten Men's Conference Tournament. As it stands right now, before we even get into IU and Purdue and their participation and where they are going into this, the first year with the Big Ten, with the West Coast, the Pac-12 schools, if you will, what has that meant to you? How has it gone from what you have witnessed? And has it worked out, do you think, to the level in which the Big Ten has looked forward to since these teams joined the conference?
The worked out is in the paycheck, and the paycheck's pretty good. So I would say, yeah, it's worked out. Obviously, with Oregon, even if they were knocked out in the quarterfinals, that had a major impact in terms of, Big Ten branding and getting another playoff team in. It has not had the impact in men's basketball that you would hope. But at the same time, that's also kind of in the nature of what was the Pac-12 for the last several years. Other than UCLA making the COVID Final Four here, the Pac-12 has not had a lot of teams, make a national run at it. So maybe we shouldn't be surprised by that. The biggest impact, you could argue, would be in the women's side of college basketball, because USC and UCLA just played for a conference championship 48 hours ago in our city, and they are 2 of the best 4 or 5 teams in the country. So a lot of us, old curmudgeon, fuddy-duddies, middle-aged dudes may not like it. You may not like having to watch your team at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, but I guarantee it's helped the bottom line, and that's the whole reason why that enterprise was taken up in the first place, John.
It is indeed. Greg Rakestraw is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So Purdue and IU, obviously IU coming off that win at home. I think that they're solidly in the NCAA tournament, so a lot of IU fans are getting what they want out of this. Going to get a new head coach after the season and get back to the NCAA tournament in this season. And then the Boilermakers, unable to get stops, maybe too many turnovers, the way things ended on Friday night in Champaign. How do you view the way the Hoosiers and the Boilermakers enter play in the Big Ten Conference Tournament this week?
Purdue is going to have a better seed in the NCAA tournament. You could argue that IU has more momentum going into the postseason. I think what IU is playing for is to ensure they are not in the play-in games in Dayton. I think that's what a win against Oregon gives them, that they would be solidly in the field and have to worry about playing on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. They can start their tournament on a Thursday or a Friday night. The other thing that they can play for is just the sense of pride of now, in more than a quarter century of us having Big Ten basketball tournaments, Indiana has rarely done anything in it. And so, this group whose legacy, identity, etc., looks a lot better than it did a month ago, but still isn't great in terms of the overall history of Indiana basketball, because the bar is set so high and this group still hasn't come close to getting there. If they could do something in Indianapolis in the Big Ten tournament, well, now there's something that this group can hang their hat on and say, look, we accomplished this. So they are playing for that over the course of Thursday through potentially Sunday, if they can make it that far. For Purdue, you're just kind of fine-tuning things and hoping kind of the matchups break the right way for you, and you can have a decent run in the NCAA tournament. Again, this was always going to be a year that was going to be a struggle in terms of trying to match what last year's group did, but also I think a kind of almost a struggle in motivation, just because, again, what last year's group accomplished, something we've been talking about for 45 years. And so this was always going to be a bit of a transitional year. And frankly, the longer the year has gone on, the more it has felt like that for Matt Painter's team.
So, Greg Rakestraw with us. Before I let you go, what is your favorite regional site with games coming up this weekend?
I got to pick the one that I'm going to in terms of Southport, because that's frankly kind of on my watch like every year. The participants a little bit different maybe than expected in terms of Brownsburg and Mount Vernon, Lawrence North and Mooresville playing in a regional for the first time in 27 years. If there's another site that you need to kind of take a look at, I would suggest Case Arena in Frankfort. Clinton Prairie had not won a boys basketball sectional in 43 years. They checked that box emphatically. They kicked some significant butt in terms of Carroll and Rossville and Frontier in the sectional at Clinton Central. And their reward is getting to play a regional game against the team that has tripped them up so many times in the last decade or 15 years. Well, they've been pretty good most of those years in Central Catholic. I think it's playing their own backyard in terms of Frankfort. Now, frankly, it's CC's backyard, too. Crowd should be good there. And in that same regional, you see the unquestioned number one team in the state in Fishers, who has won 40 consecutive games. And let me stop down right there, because the group that they have now joined that has won 40 consecutive games in the history of Indiana high school basketball is pretty significant. Odin Conley Lawrence North won 50 in a row. Jordan Halls and then the D. Davis Turner group right after that, Eric Fromm at Bloomington South, won 49 consecutive games over 2 years. Warren Central, that went undefeated in 17-18 and then won the Marion County tournament the next year, didn't lose the next week, won 46 in a row. Oscar Robertson, Crispus Attucks in the mid-50s won 44 or 45 in a row. And Marion, Purple Rain, Edwards, Jones, etc., they won 40 in a row in the mid-'80s. That's it. That's the only groups that have accomplished it. Fishers has now won 40 consecutive games. So there is something to that. And they're playing Harrison, who hasn't played in a regional since 1999. So if you're looking for a one outside of the one that I'll be broadcasting and attending on Saturday afternoon, Case Arena catches my attention as well.
By the way, our mutual friend, a little bit of love for Little Neddenrip, who knocked down a game-tying three to send Brownsburg not only to double overtime, but then ultimately to a win over Ben Davis. So shout out to the Little Neddenrip.
I believe that's Kyson, I believe, if I have my Neddenrip children named correctly. And
yes.
I just hope that his dad gets to cover that regional. Because God bless Kyle. He has honored his job, at which he is exceedingly good at, being the 2023 National Sports Media Association Indiana Sports Writer of the Year. He hasn't had a chance to see his son play that much because he will go where the best game is that night, not necessarily the game that he wants to go watch as a dad. So I'm hoping that those two things cross over, and he is with me at Southport on Saturday afternoon.
Hey, Greg, our good friend Rob Albright came correct with the cocktail, as everybody can see right now inside the lounge. So well done. I'm telling you what. Salt of the earth right here.
What you got?
We got a little bourbon and a little Coca-Cola in here. Coca-Cola and bourbon is what we're doing, which is my go-to.
That's like the most fattening thing you've had in like 8 months. You do like
exactly
1,300 push-ups just to get rid of that once you're done drinking.
Yeah, I'll go home and do 500 stomach crunches, and I'll come correct with that.
There you go. Way to be a leader for all of us, John. We appreciate it. By the way, I know you got a busy show, so I'll skedaddling it out of here. And, yes, you picked the perfect day to be at an outdoor establishment as you have, because my Saturday games or matinees, I finally have a decent amount of time to actually call you on the show this week. So what's the theme of the Saturday night soiree this coming week?
A lot of hairband action coming up on Saturday's show. A lot of hairband.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll dig up some Lita Ford for you. There you go.
You got it, buddy. Thanks, Greg.
See you, pal.
It's Greg Rakestraw on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, and a shout-out to Rob with the cocktail here. Pivot Bar and Balcony, join us if you're heading out to check out the Bucks or the Pacers. This is your destination location for that. and the Big Ten Conference Tournament, because I guarantee you this, over the course of the rest of this week, I will be back. Pivot Bar and Balcony, our location on this Tuesday. Dusty May, Michigan head coach. Tom Crean, former IU coach. Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers TV, and a lot more. Coming up, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
JMV.
Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Jason Logan, top of the hour. Some guy we met, I think, right, James, through covers.com, right?
Yep, through covers.com.
Yeah, we got a lot to get to as far as betting and such with Jason Logan at the top of the hour. Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers TV, is going to be live here coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Dusty May, Michigan head coach. It's Michigan as a part of the Big Ten Conference Tournament, year number 1 for Dusty. And the pride of Eastern Green, along with yours truly, joins the show coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Tom Crean, the former IU coach, is going to be here too from ESPN. He joins us. We'll talk about the Big Ten Conference Tournament. I just want to remind you that Pivot Bar and Balcony is the place to be. Before this Bucks-Pacers game, we're going to get a lot into that coming up a little bit later on, but you will not want to miss this spectacular place. I'm telling you, second story balcony overlooking Pennsylvania. You absolutely cannot go wrong at Pivot Bar and Balcony. And believe me, we've been inside and outside, but celebrating on a day like today as you're going to the Pacer game, it is absolutely essential. I'm going to remind you of this because I'll stop in here even before the other games of the Big Ten Conference Tournament. This is easily the best outdoor enjoyable space in the state of Indiana right here. This is it. Pivot Bar and Balcony. You will thoroughly enjoy that. All right, 239-1070 is the number. I will take your calls. Daniel Jones, the quarterback, brought in $14 million. We'll double back to that coming up in just a minute. We'll get to the Colts signing so far in free agency, and we've got a lot more for you. Bucks and Pacers. The Pacers owe you a little something later on tonight, don't they? And the start of the Big Ten Conference Tournament as we enjoy it. Pivot Bar and Balcony, downtown Indy. Just Billy right there with the beer. Join us on this glorious afternoon in March in central Indiana. We're back with you next. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
With JMV.
Thank you there, Pat McAfee. By the way, Pat McAfee doesn't sound like he is any more endeared to one Anthony Richardson than he was during the season. I know a lot of you guys understand what I'm talking about. James coming back in with the Hairband Weekend on B105.7 coming up with the JMV Takeover. I know it kind of feels like a Thursday or a Friday, but it's a Tuesday. Pivot Bar and Balcony. We are in downtown Indy, right across Pennsylvania from Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Of course, tomorrow, the Big Ten Conference Tournament with a triple header is officially underway. Tonight, the Bucks and the Pacers at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And I mentioned, too, as a part of the Big Ten Conference Tournament, Dusty May, the head coach of Michigan, joins me today at 5. Matt Painter, Boilermaker head coach, joins the show coming up tomorrow. So be ready for that. Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers TV, bottom of this hour. I mentioned Dusty May, head coach at Michigan, after 5. Tom Crean from ESPN, the former Hoosier coach, joins us today at 5:30. But, hey, hustle ass out of work and join me at Pivot Bar and Balcony, and you're going to thank me later. We will cocktail it together for the next couple of hours at Pivot Bar and Balcony. Again, a part of the Hyatt House, downtown Indy. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, it's almost like even though I've never met Jason, it seems like I have, because I see so much of his work, their work, at Covers.com. Jason Logan is a senior betting analyst at Covers.com, and they reached out to us and said, you know what, we'd love to come on your show. And I said, damn straight, I see your stuff all the time. You've been 20 years with Covers, and, constantly in social media, you guys are telling us what to expect and then bringing it as they normally do. And Jason reached out and said, you mind if I come on your show? And I said, absolutely. And Jason Logan joins us from Covers.com on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline right now. So I guess I got to double back and thank you for reaching out to us, because this has been a long time coming. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. I want to hit the patio as well too. It's I'm up in Canada right now, and it's middle of March, so it's definitely not patio weather here yet. So that sounds pretty good to me.
Where are we in Canada today?
Ontario, kind of in between Montreal and Toronto. So I mean, the sun's shining. It's pretty warm, for Canadian standards, but it's not patio weather yet.
All right. What is, I'm sitting out here, it is probably 68. It's like San Diego and Indianapolis today.
That's awesome.
What is it? What's the temperature where you are between Montreal and Toronto?
Oh man, well I got to give you in Celsius, I guess, but it's above freezing. It's at least above freezing today, which is good. I was in New Orleans for Super Bowl a couple of weeks back, and that was a nice treat as well too, to get away from February, get down there and put on some shorts and sandals for a little bit.
Yeah, I bet dude needs that, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
More than ever. Jason Logan.
Yeah.
Yeah, the senior betting analyst at Covers.com. Give me some NFL stuff. Obviously, we're in the midst of free agency right now, and I know you guys are also in tune with that. But some NFL thoughts on how you handle things at Covers.com in the offseason, Jason.
For NFL-wise, for me, I don't jump too much. I'm not a giant futures bettor. I don't like to tie up too much. I usually wait until we see training camp, see things come together. And then maybe get some action down. Usually we'll have some favorites might stumble out of the gate, and you find opportunities to buy them back. When you have that classic overreaction coming like week 2 and week 3 and week 4, there's still a lot of football for them to figure it out. I don't get too involved at this time of the year. I'm not a big draft bettor, but it is interesting to see all these guys go, where they're going. I'm a Cowboys fan, unfortunately, and it just seems like Jerry Jones is kind of always sitting on that big fat wallet of his and doesn't want to spend any money and bring anybody in. So free agency has been painful for my fandom the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's interesting around here because really this is the first time in a while, maybe even forever, hell, with Chris Ballard around here, that they've had some activity. Now, I will say this. Normally, if you're a general manager in the NFL, and Jason, you know this, and your resume reads as Chris's does, you don't get a couple of years, much less going into year number 9. But they've decided to try to at least change the dynamic and, go Bynum and go Ward, and then obviously bring in Daniel Jones as competition for Anthony Richardson. So I guess it's a bit of a change of pace around here, even if there's a lot of normalcy as far as NFL free agency goes in 2025.
Yeah, I don't know if Daniel Jones is kind of the wake-up call that you're hoping he's going to be for a guy like Anthony Richardson that brings a lot to the table. But, yeah, I mean, I didn't get too excited with the Daniel Jones signing. But that division is still, it's still very much wide open. The Jags are a bit of a mess still. The Titans still have a lot of work to do, and you're really chasing Houston right now. So it's not like it's out of reach. And if you get some of the proper pieces in there, you can make a run at that division crown or even maybe a wild card spot.
Did it surprise you the adjustments that clearly Houston's making along an offensive line that clearly struggled a year ago? Is what they've done so far in Houston surprise you at any level?
I mean, that offensive line has just kind of been the sore spot for that team the last 2 years. And it wasn't so much about like not having the bodies. It was just more about getting healthy. And then for them to start wheeling and dealing some key pieces, you kind of wonder because, without CJ Stroud under center and being protected, that you get into trouble. So yeah, I mean, that offensive line has kind of been the like I said, the sore spot for that Houston team here for the last 2 years. And it could be for a third year coming if they don't shore it up.
It's, again, covers.com, and Jason's been a part of this, obviously, with 20 years. Have you been there for 20 years, or has it just been Covers for 20 years?
Yeah, I started in 2005 at Covers as like
incredible
content editor and worked my way up along, and I was running our content team for a while, and now they just let me do my fun stuff. So you get there long enough,
yeah,
you do what you want to do, right?
I mean, is clearly the NFL your most popular season to do what you guys do at Covers?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the NFL is king. Anytime you talk to a sports book, you say, okay, what's the most popular sport? And they're like, oh, the NFL by far. And you ask them, okay, but what's the fastest growing sport? And they said the NFL by far. So the NFL continues to just steamroll things. College football obviously gets a lot of attention. And then the NBA, and then, of course, this time of year with the conference tournaments tipping off and then the NCAA tournament coming up, that would be our next biggest thing. But, yeah, NFL is the king, and then a distant second would maybe be like NBA and college football.
You want to break down the Bucks and the Pacers for me as if you're doing something for Covers.com, Jason, because right across the street that happens later on tonight. Believe me, we got some salty people. I'm salty about back-to-back losses in Atlanta and then last night in Chicago, the way this group has looked. Now, those games have been without Tyrese Halliburton. I think the hope is he is back tonight. But, what are your thoughts going into this evening with the Bucks and the Pacers?
You know what? I have had my head up the Big Ten's butt here for the last week, so I have not looked at NBA that much at all. I did have some action on Milwaukee against Cleveland the other night, and was kind of looking at some player prop situations with Cleveland coming off of back-to-backs, but not a whole lot of a take from me. I mean, the Pacers got to find a way to win here. They're coming back home, so it looks like a good spot for them against a Milwaukee team that has stumbled a little bit as well, too. I mean, if you can't get right in these comeback games, especially after taking losses to Atlanta and Chicago, what are you playing for at this time of the year?
Well, you'd mentioned Milwaukee and Cleveland going back to Sunday night as well. And how much of a sideswiping have the Cavaliers been in the NBA this season for what they've accomplished to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I still think there's people that doubt the validity of this Cleveland team because it's Cleveland and it's, a non-LeBron Cleveland team, but they can score points in different ways. They have those two great big men inside that can get it done, play great defense. You have guys like Garland that can push pace. You have shooters. And then they score a lot of points off of defense as well, too. So they're a very, very tough team to stop. It's going to be interesting come the playoffs for them because they have, a lot of different sources to get points out of and a lot of different ways to score. And more and more in the NBA, you're going to have to be able to score 130 points to win some of these playoff games. So Cleveland, but I still think people are still shocked, despite wins over Boston, despite wins over Milwaukee, holding their own against the top teams in the East.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. But impressive, too, because, they do it in a fashion. I know Mobley's a little bit different because he's not your average 7-footer, but oftentimes you don't see two bigs in the lineup as you do in Cleveland, but certainly Kenny Atkinson has found a way for that to work there and work well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the way that they can play defense and protect the rim, too, it just forces opponents into playing, that outside perimeter game. You can get a little more aggressive on the perimeter. You can jump passing lanes. You can get your heels above the three-point line and see if you can generate those turnovers that, Wood has worked for them because they're able to flip those into easy layups on the other end, and they're such a dangerous team in transition when they can get those stops. So, I mean, that's the benefit of having 2 7-footers kind of parked in the paint is that you go in there and the number of shots that they change, the number of shots that they just don't allow to get off, that allows you to be a little more risky on defense and play aggressive and kind of go for broke on steals and turnovers.
He is Jason Logan, senior betting analyst at Covers.com. You know Covers.com well. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So you mentioned you've been hard targeting the Big Ten Conference Tournament, which is officially underway coming up tomorrow, late afternoon. You've got a triple header right here, Northwestern Minnesota, Iowa, Ohio State, and USC and Rutgers. But if you don't mind, I want to jump ahead to that noon game coming up on Thursday. IU and Oregon met a couple of weeks ago in Eugene, and IU was unable to close, and the Ducks get that win. Get a rematch about a couple of weeks later here in the Big Ten Conference Tournament on Thursday. What do you think?
Oregon's been a team that really started to find their form come February. They bring a lot of momentum into this game as well too, and they're a solid offense and a solid defense. They play two solid kind of ends of basketball. As you mentioned, they did beat Indiana towards the end of the year, and Indiana had that kind of stumble in January. They picked up some good wins towards the end, but for me, I'm kind of looking towards Oregon. I don't know if I've seen odds on this one yet, because I think they're waiting on some of the other ones to come out. Here we go. Oregon -2.5 right now, a slight favorite despite kind of what is a home field edge for Indiana. I am leaning towards the Ducks in this one, but I haven't dug my teeth into it. I've been looking at the 3 games for tomorrow quite closely. Total for this one around 142.5 points. So there, it's a little lower scoring than some of the other Big Ten games that are coming out early in this round, first round, second round. I've kind of given the benefit of the doubt to the Ducks in recent games.
You got an odds-on favorite, you guys, in this Big Ten Conference Tournament, as it's said and done?
Well, Michigan State is the favorite, +250. Not an odds-on favorite, but a pretty significant favorite at +250, considering Maryland is the second team up at +400. And I like what the Terps are bringing to the table. Again, another good two-way team. They have a lot of different ways to score and have some very talented bigs as well, too. And one team that did catch my eye, and you kind of pays to shop around because you can find Illinois as the 3rd overall favorite at +650, or you can find them further down the board at +750. But Illinois is a team that had a hiccup kind of midway through February, but it wasn't really their fault. They had a flu bug run through their locker room, and then they also had a non-conference game out of nowhere with Duke, and they lost 3 in a row, and they fell back to the 7th seed. But this Illinois team is big, and they play with pace, and they're good defensively. So Illinois is a team I don't think anyone should sleep on right now. I think they'll draw Maryland if they advance to where they're supposed to advance, and that's going to be a really, really interesting game.
Yeah, I would agree. Watching Illinois and Purdue, for example, Jason, on Friday night, and watch Illinois just kind of hang around and then take that thing over, in the latter portions of that contest. You're right. I mean, they went through the flu bug thing, got on the other side of that, and beyond it, it is an incredibly talented team. So they look much different, for example, right now than they did getting beat by about 40 3 or so weeks ago against Duke.
Yeah, and that was a bad spot for them. I mean, it was a pretty quick turnaround. They played that Tuesday. They had to be in MSG for Saturday. You had guys that weren't even traveling with the team because they were ill and they didn't want to get everyone else sick. And then again, you run into that grinder that is Duke. And I think Duke was very much anticipating that game and waiting for it because they had been beating up on the ACC all year. And it's finally, good. We get some good competition here in Illinois, and they just let them have it for sure. But it was just a bad spot for Illinois. I mean, I didn't think they were going to win that game whether they were healthy or not. But it was, it being as sick as they were and having the guys out that they did have throughout that stretch definitely hurt their chances. But now, I mean, a 3-game winning streak to close out the season. I think they have the potential, I think, to get to the finals and give whoever gets there a run.
All right. Now, how hardcore, Jason, since you're in Canada right here, senior betting analyst of Covers.com, Jason Logan's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, Pivot Bar and Balcony. We're at downtown on a glorious March afternoon here in central Indiana on this Tuesday. I'm curious, how hardcore are you on the NHL? I'm assuming very much so, correct?
No, I don't watch it at all, quite honestly.
Cool.
Growing up, I was a big Mario Lemieux fan, and when he retired, I stopped watching hockey. Now, I will say, if I want to catch basketball highlights, I've got to sit through about 45 minutes of hockey highlights every single morning before I get to it. But that's life in Canada. But, I mean, when they had the Four Nations Cup going on, recently over the NHL All-Star break. I mean, we bought into that. I watched every Canada game in that one. But as far as the NHL goes, I just don't have time for it between the college basketball and the football. And I'm actually a big WNBA fan as well, too. And I'm loving the Fever. I got a good price on the Fever already this year before they made all those deals and shored up that lineup. So big Indiana Fever fan this year.
I always seemingly ask this, always either Doug and Bob McKenzie or Don Cherry question. I'm going to go with the Don Cherry question.
Sure.
How big of a deal in his prime, and I'm talking about his broadcast, his television prime, was he in Canada?
Well, funny enough, I'm in Kingston, Ontario. This is where I live now, and that is Don Cherry's hometown. So there are murals of Don Cherry on the walls down here. So, Graves is a pretty big deal here. Hockey Night in Canada was very much a institution growing up as a Canadian boy. And when he and Don McLean would come on in between periods and talk about, whatever he wanted to talk about, it was kind of must-see TV. So here in Kingston, Don Cherry is a pretty big deal.
Here's what's funny. I didn't know too much about him, and this goes back to late 90s, early 2000s. Mm-hmm. And I started listening at the time to the syndicated nationally talk show, The Jim Rome Show, and he started appearing on that. And that's where, I became kind of acquainted with not just his knowledge of hockey in the NHL world, but the way that he handled it in a flamboyant fashion in which he did.
Yeah, he's kind of, I would say like Charles Barkley is probably kind of that like equivalent of Don Cherry.
Well, if Charles Barkley dressed like Craig Sager dressed, the late Craig Sager, right?
That's
I mean,
right. That
would be Don Cherry.
That's right. If he was taking grandma's drapes and making a suit out of them, that would be Don Cherry,
No, glorious times. Hey, I want to point people to Covers.com with Jason Logan, who joins us right now, and some of the things that you're targeting for those that have interest.
Yeah, I mean, we have all of the major conference tournaments that are starting up today and going all week. We've got all of our college basketball guys are on those. We're going to eat, sleep, and live those conference tournaments. And then come Selection Sunday, we're going to be right into the big dance as well, too. And we're going to have best bets and predictions, futures bets for the NCAA tournament all throughout. And then, of course, too, we're following free agency for football, which never seems to sleep now. We have the NBA action, NHL action, anything that you can bet right now. If you're getting into baseball and spring training, there's stuff there for that as well, too. So it's a big board, and it's a perfect time to be betting on sports at Covers.
How have you seen sports? Now, obviously, I think maybe 5 years or so it's been activated here, legalized here in the state of Indiana. How have you seen this grow, for example, over the past 6, 7 or so years here and what you observed from Canada in America?
Yeah, it still kind of throws me off as someone that had been in the industry for a long time and seen the ups and downs. And then finally, I was at conferences lobbying for legalization of sports betting. And to see that repealed, it still kind of throws me off when I see like a FanDuel or a DraftKings or a sports betting odd, on the screen, or see a commercial during the game. You're like, oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's perfectly good. But, it's just a different way to enjoy the game, I think. We're seeing people transition from playing fantasy sports and pools and stuff like that and coming over to sports betting. And now the menus, too. I think that's the biggest thing that really jumps out to me is the ways that you can just wager on games. It's not just the spread or the side or the total.
Yeah.
You can get into player props. You can get into, first quarter, second quarter, and then the live betting side of things, which has been around for a long time and was big overseas with soccer. We're seeing that now really pick up steam with a lot of these sports. So it's, I think the wagering menu and the amount of ways that you can get down action speaks to the appetite and that growing appetite for sports bettors.
Yeah, it's funny. You watch the film Casino and how they were handling sports wagering.
Right.
You wonder, was that like a different universe? And I know you go back decades to the late 60s, early 70s, into the 1970s, with that portrayal in Casino, but it still, it looks like it's, happening on the surface of the moon or something. That's how odd it is.
If you go back to that scene in Casino and he talks about getting the newspapers and stuff off the trains and getting the information and knowing which player's girlfriend was doing this and blah, 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 blah. Sports betting still very much comes down to having the best information, whether that is, a player is going to play tonight, whether he's going to have a minutes restriction, how that player responds to a certain defense, what the coach's plans are, just getting that information and then finding ways to action that information. That's still the tried and true way of getting an edge over the odds makers and over the bookies. So, I mean, as much as sports betting has changed in this digital age, it still very much comes down to having the best information and then finding the odds to action that.
Yeah, that is incredible stuff right there. Jason Logan, senior betting analyst at Covers.com on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hey, how can people get your content or get in touch with you, Jason?
Yeah, you can follow me on X or Twitter at CoversJLo, and then you can come to Covers.com. The site is completely free. There's no subscription. There's no paywall. There's no sign-up. You can come and just read our content, use our stats. There's a lot of unique data there, especially when it pertains to success against the spread. That's all there, so you can find that all at Covers.com.
It's awesome, man. Great visit. It's funny. It seems like that I've known you forever, and it's the first time you've been on the show. Thank you for reaching out. And here's hoping where you are in Kingston, Ontario, the temperature gets and stays above freezing, because that's like springtime up there.
It's getting there. I will say it's getting there. I was out on the ice with my kids skating the other day on the lake. That's kind of where we're at right now. But it's getting a little warm, and it's almost shorts and flip-flop weather here.
That's awesome. Hey, buddy, thank you for joining us, Jason. Let's do it again soon, man. Reach back out, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. Thank you for having me on.
It's Jason Logan right there, senior betting analyst at Covers.com. It's weird because, James, you probably would agree with this as well. If you get on X or social media platforms, you see their content all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like I knew him, but I never had him on the show. I'd never conversed with him. It was kind of weird, but that's kind of an interesting angle that I'd never really thought about. He mentioned that, even though I brought up Casino in that particular scene, even though, that is incredibly old school, the old school values of the way that you get information, not only in the now, but will always hold true, James. Kind of interesting to hear that. Are you a big wagerer guy?
I don't do a lot of betting. I have seen Casino, though, and I really do like the movie, but I don't do a lot of gambling myself now.
It's like the first time James has ever said, yeah, that's that film I have seen before on this show. That is well done right there as well. Now, that was really interesting with Jason Logan. We'll do that again. Maybe we'll do that over the course of the NFL season once we get back to that. Daniel Jones is going to be in here as a quarterback. The competition for Anthony Richardson, we know that. The work the Colts have done so far, what do you think? Compared to what they have brought in and their offensive line and defensive line losses. Your thoughts at 239-1070. Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers Television, is on his way to Pivot Bar and Balcony. He's going to be right here coming up next. Dusty May, Tom Crean, 5 o'clock hour. I would love to see you. If you're heading out to the Bucks-Pacers game tonight, this is your place. Second story, the Hyatt House, Pivot Bar and Balcony. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Ding dong.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I got to thank Michelle that showed up out here a little bit earlier, too. Had a little cocktailage. Michelle, in fact, was a good friend, big-time listener to the show here on the Pivot Bar and Balcony, but a big-time fan and friend of one Eddie Gill, and was turned on to this show by Eddie Gill. Eddie Gill of Pacers Radio. Pacers game here tonight on the Fan, and Pacers television, of course, you can check out later on this evening. That Eddie Gill. And joining us from Pacers TV, Pivot Bar and Balcony, which is a fine location on a glorious early March Tuesday afternoon. Jeremiah Johnson just got to listen to me through most of that break. He's glad that I had like commercial reads to do because all I did was get pissy about the Pacers last night to him.
I wasn't sure if the YouTube live stream was up during that.
It is not. It is not. He turns it down.
It's off during the commercials?
Yeah.
All
You
right.
think that would have been good? It was a salty beat. I'm sorry. That crap last night pisses me off. I mean, it really does. And there's nobody out there that believes and wants to see this group perform well more than me. Seriously, maybe my mom, but me. But last night was a joke. I'm sorry. Last night was a joke. And I'm pissed. I'm still pissed.
And
about
away
it.
we go.
Hey, I'm still pissed.
I will
about it.
correct one thing that you said off the top.
All right.
No Pacers TV tonight. It's on TNT. So much like the last time I joined you on location, I have one job to do tonight. I'll be interviewing Rick Carlisle in about an hour and a half for Pacers Digital. Eddie Gill is working, of course, on the radio side of things right here on this very network. But I'll just be kind of watching. So
That's for sure we're going to get hosed tonight, then. That never works
At last
out well.
check, Reggie Miller on the call. So, hey.
Where is he? Like, Reggie Miller's not showing
You
up
didn't
at
invite
Pivot
him
right now.
Well, you had a pretty star-studded show. I mean, Dusty May coming on, Greg Rakestraw.
You can hang around, talk to Dusty, too, if you want. Dusty's going to join us at 5. Dusty's a good dude, man.
The last time I hung around to talk with a coach with Michigan roots, it didn't really go very well.
Did that piss you off when Dane Fife made that comment about
Actually, you
Indy?
know what? I wouldn't have minded having a more in-depth conversation with Dane because I do get a little frustrated with the college basketball fan, and I know he's well entrenched and he knows basketball. But sometimes
I love the
offhanded
NBA.
criticism, it does kind of get me a little frustrated.
I love it. You know,
Except last night you didn't love it.
No, I was pissed off last night. So was my mom. My mom loves the NBA more than I do. You know,
So
my
is
mom,
my son.
My mom watches West Coast games and then like calls me at 7 in the morning and tells me about Golden State and Phoenix. I just watched that Utah team. I go, what? What?
Well, you should have her on instead of the person you had on your
Oh,
last
my
guest.
God,
She
I
would tell
can't
you who's
even-
going to win all the games, right?
James, do not call my mom and put her on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline.
You know, I've
Lord
never
have
heard her
mercy.
on the air.
Yeah, well, there's a reason.
And she's a basketball expert.
There's a reason for that.
Right.
Believe
James,
me.
next time that you invite me on, I'm going to say only if John's mom is on
Oh,
first.
my God.
Understood.
I'm trying to think how that would go. That would be so horrific. It would all come out. All of it.
I think it'd be fantastic.
She still treats me like I'm 15.
You
Like
got
all the decisions I make, I'm 15.
Do you still go on 59 with Hagan on
I do.
Selection Sunday?
I go on every Sunday night. You don't watch?
I guess, yeah. So it's not special
I do it
when
from
you're
my
on
living room.
Selection
I
Sunday.
may go in on Sunday because I haven't
That's
gone
like
in the
old
past
times.
because I've been too fat. But now I think I may go in because I'm not as fat as I used to be.
Yeah, do you have the suits, though, that would fit you for
No, I
this
have nothing that
studio
fits.
appearance?
Seriously, JJ, this is like somebody else's right here. This is not my clothes. These are not mine.
How do you do with your son? Are you the same size right now?
We are not. He's still a lot more skinny than me.
Yeah,
So yeah, but we are. These are 32, 30. I've never worn 32 in my life.
Wow.
In my life right now. So these are not my clothes.
I couldn't recall the time that I was 32. I'm proud of you.
Thank you, man. I feel good about it. Shout out to Premier Weight Loss and Thomas for that, too. Actually, Rob Albright came out and asked me some questions, and as you know, I will answer all questions regarding it. But the reason why I did is because I wanted to feel better, and I wanted to be more healthy, but I also wanted to look better on the floor. Man, I play basketball a lot better. Did you hear me and Brian Evans yesterday? You probably didn't. You were in Chicago.
I did not.
I think I could outplay Brian Evans right now.
I think you could.
I think I could.
Yeah.
I could definitely run the floor. I can get out in front of people now. I can't guard anybody still, but that was always an issue. I thought last night that if I'd have been sitting near the bench, Rick would have subbed me in.
We got James Johnson minutes with about 5 minutes left in the game.
I'm not saying a damn thing, right? I'm not saying a damn thing about that blown tire going up for the dunk last night. Because that,
Yeah.
For the regulator, that wasn't a great moment for the regulator.
It was not the Menards big money shot of the game last night on the postgame show.
Is this all about Halliburton right now, or what else? Because, listen, it's one thing, but Halliburton is not this great defensive player. Teams are just getting whatever they want in the lane. Driving there, being there, whatever. And that has to stop.
That's probably the biggest question that I have, is because if there's one area that teams take advantage of Tyrese Halliburton, it's on the defensive end. And so if he wasn't playing in the last 3 games, you could make a case that your perimeter defense should be a little better while you're much worse offensively. And I think the perimeter defense has been worse. Now, it seems like the last 3 games, you go into a series against the Hawks and you're sort of expecting Andrew Nembhard to guard Trae Young, but because he was primary point guard, we didn't see that matchup as much. You didn't want to wear Andrew Nembhard down. You didn't want to get him in foul trouble, as can happen if you're guarding Trae Young. But just everyone else. I mean, I'm not going to single out any one player as the defense was poor. It was really a group effort. And then really in Chicago, so many times when the offense is bad, the explanation is that, well, it's the bad defense or the mistakes on defense is leading to bad offense. But they just were not in sync at all. That was what Rick Carlisle said after the game, and I could not agree more. It didn't look like they had any flow. There were way too many times. When you see them with 4 on the shot clock and they still haven't got anything going, it's not going to go.
Well, without Halliburton, the ball definitely sticks. I mean, they go to one-on-one stuff. And even with Andrew, the ball, it is dribble, and then you get Miles. Listen, I'm a Miles body language expert by now. And all of a sudden, he becomes disconnected offensively because of that, which will have a profound effect on the defensive end. It all comes unraveled, and that is a big part of not having Halliburton.
Yeah, for so many, the last few seasons, you thought by him being the lone center, by removing the Domantas Sabonis equation, it allowed Miles Turner's offense to open up. But really, maybe it was just Tyrese Halliburton allowed Miles Turner's
There is no question about that.
To open up. And, the thing is, it's easy to – this is like bad timing to do an in-depth, extensive
Well, Nate
Pacers.
Bjorkgren would have him staked out in the corner there the entire possession.
But the last 3 games can kind of cloud things a little bit. We've seen Andrew Nembhard lead a group and play well. It's just the last 3 games did not go well. And even I'll look at those 2 Hawks games – they weren't good games, but the common theme of this 3-game road trip has been some bad quarters. The one bad quarter in Chicago was the second quarter. You outscore them the rest of the way. In Atlanta, the first quarter in game 2 was the problem, and you fight all the way back. And then, you could have had a win in one or 2 of those games, and that's where it's bad. And now you're feeling a sense of desperation. So I can't wait to see what team takes the court tonight. I think it's really important. I know it's the second half of the back-to-back, but I don't expect anyone to feel any fatigue. For one, the starters, they were out of the game, as you mentioned, midway through the third quarter.
Like Houston last week when they came in.
And you've got 2 days off coming up after this. So to me, it's an all-hands-on deck. You give it all you've got. And this team has done a really good job since they've been constructed this way of bouncing back from those disappointing, those really poor performances. And make no mistake, I mean, that game in Chicago was a poor performance. I wanted a running clock at one point in the fourth quarter. As much as you enjoyed watching Quentin Jackson and Johnny Furphy play, and it was good experience for them, that game was going nowhere fast. And so as soon as you could get that game over with, you get on that plane, you come back to Indianapolis, and you set the stage for it maybe takes some of the luster off of this matchup, maybe with what happened over the last week, but it's still an important game. It's still the Bucks, and it's still potentially a team you're going to see in a best-of-7 series in about a month.
It's Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers TV. It's all TNT all the time. Do we know the record on Tuesday nights? I know that they won, because we talked about this last week, for the first time this season on Tuesday night last week against the Rockets.
Right, I think it was 0-5 prior to that. So
what's the record on TNT on Tuesday night here? I don't think that's good.
Well, this is only the 3rd TNT game. So
is it?
Yeah.
How about, I don't know, maybe I'm mixing
It's just 1-5 on Tuesdays in general. And I know many people would say over the years.
You didn't bring that up on the broadcast, though, did you?
Once they won. Winless no more on
Makes
Tuesdays.
sense.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we might have even brought it up. It's like it was kind of it's not really something that means anything. It's like the ball on the roulette wheel. If it goes red 20 times, the ball doesn't know. And there's nothing with the day of the week, Tuesday, really mattering. But it was good to get one last Tuesday, and the Pacers will definitely try to get one tonight.
All right, I'm going to ask you the question. You stick and stay here about Tyrese Halliburton's participation later on tonight. Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers TV on the other side. Pivot Bar and Balcony. We're downtown. James, is Evan in there with you right now?
He is indeed.
Evan Sherrill of Cluster Truck is there, and this is how dedicated Evan and Cluster Truck might be for a great night for you to order in. You brought food even when I'm not in studio, Evan. Thank you very much.
I got you. No, happy to do it. Thank you for getting me on.
You got it. What'd you bring in there today for James and me? What do you got?
Salmon and roasted veggies. Classic for you,
Yes.
JMV. I got you. I heard,
Very
by the way,
non-fat.
I heard you were grilling out salmon last night. I hope the Cluster Truck salmon is far superior to that.
Yeah. I screw stuff up, buddy. Seriously. Like my kids had some old garlic butter in the fridge, and I put it in. It just was awful. Yeah, there's nothing compares to your salmon, man. I'll do that later on tonight. So thank you for the salmon and the mix of vegetables. What for James?
For James, I brought, this is going to be more food than James can handle probably, but brought our Dunk Fest special, $29.99. Gets you our hand-stretched cheesy bread, 2 pounds of strips and dips, chicken strips, churros with caramel sauce, and our house-made chips and queso.
Wow, you're feeding me for the rest of the week right there.
James will be eating that until April.
Oh, yeah.
First day it's available on the menu. Horizon League Championship tonight. Pacers game tonight. So Dunk Fest special.
I appreciate it.
Horizon League Championship tonight. You got the Big Ten tournament coming up tomorrow. Hey, Evan Sherrill's with us from Cluster Truck. Tell everybody out there before we hit a break and let you go why Cluster Truck would be a great call for whatever you're doing, because this is the time of year when you really don't want to jack with cooking anything.
Agree. Yes, totally agree. Like, you're going to a park, you got the game on, whatever the case, you don't want to cook, even if you just got groceries. Cluster Truck, we deliver. It's always free delivery. ClusterTruck.com, and if you use code FAN at checkout, you get $5 off your order.
FAN is the code. Evan Sherrill, Cluster Truck, with the food in studio today every Tuesday with us. Evan, I appreciate you.
You're the man. Thank you very much.
Evan Sherrill, Cluster Truck, clustertruck.com, and use the promo code FAN. JJ on the other side, Dusty May, Michigan head coach, top of the hour. Tom Crean, bottom of the 5 o'clock hour. Bucks and Pacers, no local Pacers TV. It's a TNT broadcast and a mammoth contest right across Pennsylvania from where I sit right now. Pivot Bar and Balcony. Would love to see you here before the Pacer game. Slide on by and join us. The stream, the app, it's HD Radio, the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
A ride with JMV.
If somebody gets in your face and calls you a I want you to be nice.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
How about the Offspring tickets? Anybody want to go? Ruoff this summer, be a part of that. This is where you go to win tickets to be a part of experiences like Pivot Bar and Balcony downtown. Number 9 at 239-1070. You're going to go on us. The Offspring from Huntington Beach, California. The Offspring, number 9 at 239-1070. Thank you, Live Nation, for being a part of this show as always. Jeremiah Johnson of Pacers TV, who will stand down a little bit tonight. We'll interview Rick Carlisle. However, the responsibility is that of TNT on TV later on tonight, correct?
That's correct. It's been rare over the years to have the national exclusive TNT broadcast, 4 of them on the schedule this season. So this one and then one more the last week if that stays on the schedule against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So back-to-back for everyone but me today.
Hey, by the way, Daniel Jones, we'll get to that conversation coming up in with the Colts right now, free agency with the Colts. We're not forgetting about that. So don't go anywhere if you want to hear, again, my thoughts on it. But I did want to bring up the Bucks. Yeah, I saw them, and they lost to Cleveland. Cleveland has been a juggernaut this season, no doubt. Lost at home to Cleveland on Sunday. How has this team looked since the acquisition of Kyle Kuzma?
They're better defensively. I don't know if Kyle Kuzma, to me, would have been the person that would point them in that direction. Maybe some of it's just over time. They're figuring things out with Doc Rivers' system, and maybe a little bit it could be schedule related. You know, they were on a really good stretch until the last 2 games, but I did note that they'd played some lesser competition. So we'll see how good they are. I mean, really, the Pistons of the 3 teams that are in that 4, 5, 6 mix right now are probably playing the best. I mean, and they're tied right now with the Pacers, and I looked at their schedule, and their schedule's not tough either. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but the Bucks are playing better than they were, and they have 2 wins already and 2 tries against the Pacers this season, so I expect the Pacers to give it all they've got tonight.
Well, they owe us. Let's just face it. After last night, I mean, seriously. Yeah, little pride should set in, too, after last night, too. I'm assuming that, you know, the way that Rick Carlisle handled them with the bench play and subbing out as early as he did, there was probably some points to be made across the board.
And I would think if things go poorly tonight, there will be some quick substitutions. We know there will be quick timeouts because
Johnny Furphy may be in there the first 3 minutes later on tonight.
Yeah, let's hope it does not come to that. Not nothing against Johnny, but you want to see your main guys playing. And again, Tyrese Halliburton questionable, T.J. McConnell questionable, and they just happen to be the 2 guys on the Game Time program tonight. So
can Johnny Furphy be Josh Giddey?
Ooh, I'm not sure if he's that much of a ball handler, I guess. I mean, I think of him more of a wing player. I was kind of thinking maybe a little bit of
I just compare them because they're both Australian.
Yeah. I think the one thing is, with his age and where he's at, you're going to give him a lot of time, because I do think in 3 or 4 years he's going to be a really good NBA player, and all you invest in him will pay off down the road. But you're not looking for him to really do much this season.
I say Halliburton plays tonight. What say you? There's no way he's on
the cover playing Milwaukee.
Of course, that was playing.
All I would say is that of the last 3 games, it did not feel like it was one of those injuries that would be a week-long injury. And so he already missed 3 games. You thought all along
the target.
Yeah.
Did you?
And I do think the question you asked me last week was a valid one about if they're monitoring anything or any of the decisions they're making is just about making sure he's healthy for the playoffs. And you know, after what you saw the last 3 games, you know how much you need him. You cannot be sort of dealing with questionable and game time decisions when the games really matter, and you have to have him at 100%, so you don't want to overdo it.
I think we crap the bed if he doesn't participate tonight, because I think that's a sign of something maybe larger. Fair? Or just sports talk radio fodder?
I don't disagree with you. If Rick Carlisle goes to the pregame press conference and says that Tyrese Halliburton is out, it would feel a little like day-to-day is not that accurate. But, you know, he just said last night he just wasn't ready, and so we'll see if that extra 24 hours and then maybe the back-to-back, if that factored into it at all, and obviously this opponent. Now, you didn't go into those 3 games on the road saying, well, you don't need him to win. It was more about getting him 100%. They weren't resting him because they thought, oh, well, you don't have to have him. I don't think that at all. but they did probably place added importance on the Bucks.
No 60 for Giannis tonight, by the way, tonight.
Okay.
So, yeah. Hey, buddy, thanks for coming over here.
Enjoy it.
Jeremiah, you sure you don't want to stay? Talk to Dusty and Tom Crean? No?
I'm good.
All right, then. Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers TV again. TNT tonight. Pacers TV will be back with you. JJ, kind enough to join us at the Pivot Bar and Balcony right across the street from Gainbridge Fieldhouse. We'll take a break, come back. The head coach of Michigan, Dusty May, prepping for his first Big Ten Conference tournament. That's coming up next.
Hey, Ploy. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, welcome back. Pivot Bar and Balcony. We are right across from Gainbridge Fieldhouse. I'm going to go over and check out the Bucks and the Pacers later on tonight. Pacers losers of 3 straight, 2 in Atlanta, 1 in Chicago last night. So they're in need. This is a big one with the Bucks as far as the Eastern Conference playoff picture is concerned. Got it for you. We'll lead you right up to it. Colts making moves today. Daniel Jones is going to be the Anthony Richardson competition coming up this year at quarterback. We will double back to all that and more. And Tom Crean, the former Hoosier coach and from ESPN, joins us at the bottom of the hour. Matt Painter on the show coming up tomorrow. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, because right across the street tomorrow, a triple header of the Big Ten Conference Tournament is underway in his first Big Ten Conference Tournament as head coach of Michigan, as they await the winner of Purdue, which awaits the winner of USC and Rutgers. Nice spot for Dusty May in Michigan, waiting to see who they play. And Dusty's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Dusty, how we doing in Ann Arbor this afternoon?
Well, doing great, John. Actually, on my way to Detroit, so just left the city limits.
Well, you got a good cell signal right there in suburban Detroit. Is that going to lock in for us?
Solid, yeah. The sun came out yesterday, and after the way we finished the season, we needed a little bit of clear skies and sunlight.
Hey, how do you dress your team when you lose to Michigan State in that fashion to end the regular season? Just so, Dusty, you prep them for what's to come here at Indy later on this week.
Well, it usually goes beat, 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 beat. No jokes aside. We talked about how we actually I imagine Chuck Marlowe sitting across from me, but anyway, no, we talked about how we competed in the second half, and we tried to find the positives of that game, and after that, then we just talked about how when one thing ends, another thing begins, and our regular season's over, and now postseason begins, and we've got to find a renewed energy and belief and confidence because we haven't shot the ball well in about a month. And so if we can find a way to knock down a few shots, we feel like we can really go start moving in the right direction again.
Hey, Dusty May, the head coach of Michigan, joins us. And again, they await their opponent later on this week, right across the street from where I am right now, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the Big Ten Conference Tournament. His first as the head coach of Michigan. Is momentum a real thing? And let's just say, for example, right now you're having to rebuild that with your group going into this Big Ten Conference Tournament. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I do believe confidence and momentum are important. But matchups are also important. I think probably even more important. But the thing with confidence, if a guy gets a clean look and bangs one in, we had a couple guys who are good shooters that had 3 or 4 wide open ones that they all looked good. They rimmed in and out, or they went straight and hit the back of the rim. And sometimes it's just not your night. And on those nights, you can't turn it over, and you have to defend better than we have. So we do have capable shooters. We've proven we've shot it well at times. We have a lot of evidence. The first, I guess, 2/3 of the season, we were top 20 in the country in three-point shooting. So, some teams shoot it well early, some late. But during the postseason, if you look at the historic runs, a shooting streak has usually been related to it.
Now, how do you get that confidence back with these guys right here? Because, obviously, you've known before wherever you've been, Florida Atlantic, for example. But how do you get it back, or how are you going about trying to get that confidence level back with this group?
Through practice, through work, and the most positive thing we've seen is the last 2 or 3 days of live practice. We've shot it much more like we did earlier in the year. And you got to hope that the first couple go in, but also the belief that you can find a way to win when you don't shoot well if you do the other things at a championship level. And the last 3 or 4 games, last 3, 4, 5 games, we haven't done the other things at a championship level. So I do think if you're rebounding, you're defending, you're not turning it over, then you shoot with a lot more confidence and belief because there's not so much pressure on having to make the shot. And then we played from behind a lot more as of late, and usually when you're behind, there's more pressure on each attempt.
So Dusty May, the head coach of Michigan, again awaiting who they will take on later on this week at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. He's with us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. How are teams late in the season, I guess if they are, defending you or going about defending you differently, the same? What plays a role into, obviously, all of a sudden, you don't just go from being a bad shooter to a bad shooter in this case, but how are teams defending you differently now compared to maybe how they were doing that earlier in the season?
Well, we have a couple guys, Damari Burnett, for example, that they're not leaving him. And you could even, you hear the other coaches saying, tell their team, don't leave Burnett. So, he's getting a lot of attention. And then Will Cheddar's a guy that shot it well. And now he's getting ran off the line. So there's not really, when he's open, they're jumping and launching at him and not even really giving him a decision where he needs to drive the ball, get a paint touch. So there are guys that, because of their importance to our team, the opposition simply just tries to run them off the line or jump at them, where some other guys, it's just a normal short closeout, and they've got to find some rhythm and confidence and knock them in. So it's a little bit different for each guy, but we have such a good front line that we're going to continue to get at least solid looks from three.
Yeah, well, and from your front line, the entire season, that has been obviously your staple. And you probably knew that going in. I know we talked about that when you first started out at Michigan with what you were going to have coming in there, whether it was Wolf or Vlad. But your impression on offensively what the big guys have done, because honestly, we live in an era in which when you have two big guys, a lot of people frown upon that. You have embraced that with this two. How has that been for the most part this season for you, and in particular, Dusty, your offense?
Well, because they're both so uniquely talented, they can work in a lot of different ways. Offensively, we haven't played well as our shooting has slumped, because if you make shots, those guys have a lot more space. But we've done a lot of different things with them. We put them in pick and rolls together. We've spaced them. Vlad's ability to drive the ball from the perimeter has added a new wrinkle to his game. Danny Wolf as a passer and facilitator has been the thing that we've went to in tight games when the game has slowed down. So those guys have been really good. And then obviously Danny's ability to rebound and lead the break has been, something that we've leaned on for quick scores. So I do think we're getting quality looks from our shooters once we start knocking them down. Danny and Vlad, I don't know if their production will go up, but I do think their efficiency will continue to improve just because of the attention the other guys are going to start getting.
When do you get down to Indy?
We're going to leave tomorrow night. We're going to practice, go to class, practice here, and then drive down late in the evening. So we'll be there tomorrow night.
Do you need a stress-relieving pickup game of any kind? Do you need that right now? Because I'm here for you if you need it.
Well, there's 100% guarantee that I wouldn't be coaching the games on a scooter. Then I would take up on that. But I've got to be. I got to get through the end of the year not coaching on the Ron Hunter Memorial scooter.
It's Dusty May, the head coach of Michigan. He's on the Indy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hey, by the way, the Big Ten journey, I don't know if you've watched it, what they've done for you, but in particular, our good friend Mark Barnheiser, he got like star power. My man got a ton of airtime on that. That was outstanding.
Well-deserved star power. And just the irony of us playing Northwestern and those guys in the tournament, and then this year, obviously it was a lot of fun. But Coach Barnheiser deserves that. He's impacted so many people, as you know, and you're one of those that's included. So it's nice for him to get a little bit of the spotlight, because obviously I wouldn't be here or anywhere near here if he wasn't taking the job at OEFG way back in time.
When you reference, and he referenced so many times, morning basketball, it just hits you, because that is something, and that was a competitive edge that he established that, honestly, Dust, before he got there, I never knew existed.
Absolutely. I mean, he was able to. I tell people all the time, Coach Knight could increase the intensity of any building, of a 100,000-seat arena, football stadium. When he walked in, intensity was elevated. Coach Barnheiser had that same effect, where even when he wasn't around, we wanted to please him, and we were always worried about pleasing him. So it made us always try to be our best, to behave when he wasn't around, to make good decisions when good decisions weren't easy to make. So, a lot of the discipline and accountability that I've lived in my life is a direct result of those informative years when, everything's a competition. You're expected to bring your best every single day. And there's absolutely nothing that will get in the way of those standards. And it was a lot like that working for Coach Knight. And then, as I went into coaching, the absolute best coaches are the ones that hold their teams to those standards.
Yeah, and you're never satisfied, no matter what the hell happens. That's what's always so, and because there's always that next level or that next wall you have to run through. And what was always amazing to me is how, you had that dynamic of, it was right there with pissing you off that got you to get to that next level or run through that next wall. And are you kind of gravitated, when you're recruiting out, and I don't know if you're doing that right now, but whether or not you're out recruiting, are you gravitated to players that have been coached up in a similar fashion?
Absolutely. Well, just the players have been coached with that level of intensity, especially in the Big Ten. And full transparency, I underestimated how physical and how demanding the league was going to be. 20 games is a lot of games when every game, especially for us, we had a statistical anomaly where we were outscored in Big Ten play by our opponents, and we won over 70% of our games. That hasn't happened since Northern Iowa back in the late 80s. Before they were in the Missouri Valley Conference and whatnot. So every game for us was mentally and physically exhausting. And I do think that there was an element of us almost running out of gas a little bit. But there were certain stretches where I do think we probably felt a little bit too good about ourselves and we didn't stay on edge. As a former hockey coach at Michigan says, when you're in first, you need to practice like you're in last. And I'm not sure we did that as a group this year.
Is there anything you would have handled differently regarding that? Just out of curiosity. Just in dialogue, in practice facilitation, is there anything you would have handled differently knowing what you know now?
Absolutely. I'm a big self-reflection guy where if something doesn't go well, I'm probably going to blame myself for the first 10 things and then maybe look at the culture and the other people for the next however many.
Yeah.
But all summer, our guys would want fouls in practice, and we'd remind them that it's the Big Ten. But I don't think we created an environment that was physically demanding on the court to allow us to be at a championship level. Now, I think we did in conditioning in the weight room, and we did some good things, obviously, for a new group to come together and finish second in this league. That's a testament to our guys. But I do think there was another gear that we could have hit and taken it to another level.
Yeah, it's funny. While it's gratifying, Dust, that you learned that, you probably look back on it and knowing you a little bit, you probably go, damn, I wish I would have realized that a month ago or so. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and John, I'm a big believer in our championship. Like, for us to be really good in 25-26, it's going to be how aggressively we recruited the day after the season ends, and then what kind of off-season plan, development plan, strength conditioning plan. I think we have a lot more control in June, July, and August to win these games than we do once the games get here in March. And that's just my personal opinion. I don't think we have near as much impact on the actual game as we do on the environment, the culture that we create months, weeks, days in advance.
Hey, I saw you and Coach Izzo having a little dialogue at the end of the game. Can you let me in on what was being said there at the end of the game on Sunday?
Yeah, I've got so much respect for Coach Izzo. Just the way he had to grind it out to even, get to Michigan State, and he's been able to stay there for so long in a place, and he's built his own culture and identity there. And then for them to do what they did this year, I couldn't have more respect for the job that everyone in that program did this year. And so it was just, there was some confusion. Obviously, they have their customs and traditions, and we're not exactly familiar with them, just like I'm not familiar with Oregon's or Minnesota's or anybody else's. But apparently one of their players took offense to our guys standing at 4 And he shoved him, and that player, obviously, I think he went too far, but that's also what makes him him. And he's an extremely valuable competitive player. So I think it's a lot more histrionics in this where I can't believe that people have talked about it as much as they have. But no, he was just explaining what it was from his point of view, and I was explaining from ours. And, there's no hard feelings here. I wish we would have had our guys up to those standards to compete at the level we needed to for that game to go down to the very end. Yeah,
what's interesting about that is, man, coaches, I saw where Tom after the game, talked about, these are what you do is try to galvanize your guys, right? I mean, you may say, all right, you don't want to react that way in the moment, but you still try to galvanize your guys as a team in the most important time of year. So I would think that as a coach, Dusty, that's kind of a delicate dynamic between, doing the right thing, but also making sure you maintain that competitive balance with your own locker room.
Yeah, and to be honest, John, I was proud of our guys because the first instinct of a lot of players, if you just get two hands shoved in the chest, is to retaliate. Right. And I'm just glad neither team went too far because then they'd be suspended for the Big Ten. So there is some self-restraint, some self-discipline that comes into play. And those are things that these guys are learning on the fly because, in life you're going to be put in similar situations and you can either take the high road or you can, make a poor, rash decision. So it happened. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like I said, the Holloman kid who chucked LJ Kaysen, he's one of my favorite players in the league. I mean, he's an absolute dog. And so hopefully we have an opportunity to compete against them on Sunday because that means we won and they won. Yep. And in all honesty, when both Michigan schools are at the top of the league, it's good for the game of basketball, and it's certainly great for our state and the sport up here.
Dusty May, the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, year number 1, coming in here on Friday. I'm not even going to ask you about it. No matter what time that you play, because I'm assuming that you just want you to get your guys back on the floor as quickly as possible with a whole new positive mindset and get going coming up here on Friday night, right?
9:00 Friday. I'm assuming it'll be a really, really tightly contested game. We're excited to play in Indianapolis, though. What a great environment, and obviously Indiana and Purdue and Illinois travel so well to Indianapolis, so it's going to be a big-time environment. I've missed the Big Ten tournament all the years I was away, so we're excited for it. We're excited to get into postseason and see what we can become and how well we can play.
Is Greene County going to be up in here later on this week? Do I expect that?
I assume there'll be a touch. I'm not sure Anna handles all that. That's outside of my job responsibilities at this point. But I think there'd be some juicy flavor.
Let me tell you this. So I'm watching, and I didn't get like David Hayes calls me at the very last minute when you were down in Bloomington. He goes, "Hey, you want to go to the game?" I said, "Man, Hayes, literally they play in 25 minutes. All right, what the hell?" So anyway, I couldn't make it down there in time, which was unfortunate. But I swear to you, the first thing I saw was Fobs behind your bench right there. You need more of that. You need more of Fabio on TV behind your bench.
I've got a couple good stories that I'll give you off the air about that. Little funny side jokes.
I texted him.
Actually, we played in Nebraska a couple weeks. Go ahead.
I texted him. I said, "Fobs," I said, "you're like the star of CBS right now, man. What the hell?" And it was everybody right there, and it was Fabio. Let's just say that.
It was Fabio-esque.
Yes, it was. It is exactly what I would expect. All right, Nebraska. You were going to tell the story. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mike Pittman and Brent Piper, a couple of Eastern Green legends, live out at that part of the country, and they were able to come to the game and visit afterwards, so it's good to see those guys. Speaking of the Greene County touch.
Well, Piper is famous because he lived right beyond the left field gap of the baseball diamond at Eastern, where we all played, and we were having batting practice one day. I was shagging balls in left field, and he brought over some food for me to eat while I was shagging balls.
I love it.
Right there, man. Hey, I'm extremely proud of you. We all are, buddy. Seriously. I mean, for what you've accomplished this season. And I know that it's a rough patch, but I also know that you recognize that that's what's going to happen. But just a fantastic start to your career in Ann Arbor. And here's to more to come. And I'll look for you coming up on Friday night. And like I said, if you need, hey, Dust, man, if you need to get a little decompression with a pickup game or something, just let me know. I got a couple around here. We can do it.
I'll keep that in mind, John. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm sure we'll cross paths in Indy.
Really proud of you, man. Tell Anna and everybody else that hello. Thanks, Dust.
Definitely. Thanks, John. See you.
It's Dusty May, the head coach of Michigan, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. He is a great guy. Great guy. Seriously. Brent Piper was a dude that had a house. It was just beyond left field off of Highway 43. Beyond the left field fences of our baseball diamond at Easton Green. And he used to bring food over for us to eat as we were shagging balls in the outfield and left field. True story. That's awesome. Dusty in Michigan awaiting the winner of Purdue, who awaits the winner of USC and Rutgers. Now, that game's coming up tomorrow. Purdue will play on Thursday. Matt Painter joins us on tomorrow's show, the head coach of the Boilermakers. That's Dusty May, Michigan head coach on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I see Billy over there, too. We got Bucks Pacers later on tonight right across the street at Cambridge Fieldhouse. Pivot Bar and Balcony, our location on this incredible, glorious weather Tuesday. Don't go anywhere. Tom Crean, the former Hoosier head coach from ESPN, is going to join us on the other side. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Ride with JMV.
I got nowhere else to go.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Oh, the pride of Eastern Green a little bit earlier. My good friend Dusty May, the head coach of Michigan, year number 1 in Ann Arbor on the podcast, just joined us. Again, Friday they await the winner of Purdue, who's awaiting the winner of Rutgers and USC. Triple header tomorrow. We're at Pivot Bar and Balcony right across Pennsylvania. We're outdoors because the day is outstanding from Gainbridge Fieldhouse tonight. Bucks and Pacers on TNT, and of course right here on the Fan. I'll be attending that, so I'll hang out here with you guys up until that, and then you get the Big Ten Conference Tournament with a triple header tomorrow. And Dusty May on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline a little bit earlier. That podcast at 1075thefan.com. Matt Painter joins us coming up on the show tomorrow. But on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline right now, the former Hoosier head coach and from ESPN, Tom Crean is with us. Tom, good afternoon to you. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I just talked to Dusty May. Yeah, it's awesome out here today. This weather here in Indy is absolutely incredible. I just talked to Dusty May, the head coach of Michigan, year number 1. What have you taken away from his first season in Ann Arbor from what you've witnessed?
I think he's done a great job. The last couple of weeks, they've really been exposed a little bit for not being able to execute their offense when they get sped up and when the game gets overly physical. And I also think when Illinois put Kylan Boswell on Danny Wolf, I think that changed a lot of things. And then I think that's an issue, right? Like, I think that's kind of how you're going to get guarded in the NCAA tournament. But I do think they've done a really good job. He's won so many close games, and there's something to really be said for that because, I mean, I think they had, 11 wins that were 4 points or less. Like, that is monumental. And it doesn't matter if you're in your first year or your 50th year, right? That's a lot. And so that's really, really impressive, but they've been sped up. Michigan State has definitely exposed them twice. The physicality, they just have not looked as comfortable offensively, which has created some turnovers. There's been some letdowns defensively. I think more communication issues, but they're still capable. I mean, obviously, I would think in if you're looking at teams that need to have a good week, not necessarily win the tournament, but need to have a good week, I'd put Michigan right near the top of the list. They need to get back to playing the way they're capable of. Golden is a all-league, going to make some All-American type teams. Danny Wolf is getting a ton of NBA buzz, from people. But they just haven't been as good. Roddy Gale Jr. has really not been as good. Trey Donaldson has not been as good. And they need a good week.
It's Tom Crean. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'd ask Dusty this, and you would know this as well as a coach. When you go through like this, a 3-game losing streak at the end of the year, and now you're trying to bridge the gap going into the conference tournament and then the NCAA tournament, how do you get back what was once lost? And you described it as being exposed. How do you regain what you once had in so short a period of time when it matters the most and you go into one-and-done situations?
You need one win. One win can cure a lot of things. And see, because they're in a different position. They're not an extremely high seed, but they're in the tournament, right? They're not in any type of bubble situation. And like Indiana's in a bubble situation. They need a win in a big way to take a breath probably. But Michigan doesn't have that, but they're not playing well. And they don't look that good. And to me, they need to have had really good practices. I would think they've probably spent a lot of time guarding Danny Wolf different ways, guarding the 4-5 pick and roll different ways, doing those type of things. But really, at the end of the day, if you come out and you get one win, whether you played good or not, okay, you get another chance. And then when you go out, now you're feeling that much better, and you can kind of relax a little bit. But there's no question. I mean, if you're trying to make a run in the tournament and you've had the year that you've had and you were in the hunt for the championship going into the last game, you want to have a good week. I mean, you really – and it starts with having one really good day.
Tom Crean is with us. All right, maybe not completely similar, but at least in the ballpark. Matt Painter is going to join me tomorrow, the head coach of Purdue, and they're trying to regain their positive footing as well. What have you seen out of them? And I guess more specifically, Tom, from that Friday night loss on the road that, ever since Illinois really looked terrible against Duke, they've looked, I think, arguably the best we have seen them this season. So combine the two here, Illinois playing well, and then what Purdue and Matt need to do to get back on track.
Well, Illinois gets Mortez Johnson back, too, I read. So if that's accurate, and he's able to come in and play, even if he doesn't play well, that helps them get ready for next week. Because I think they're really good. I think that where Illinois had problems is they were shooting so many threes, which is a big part of their offense, but they weren't getting the rebounds. They weren't getting the second shots. The percentages were really low, and their offensive rebound percentage was really low. Like, that's a bad combination. But they're better at that. And I think in a lot of ways that team, when Kylan Boswell, when they went up to Michigan, that was like a turning point to me because Boswell focused on defense. He got after Danny Wolf. He scored a bunch of points. And they need a consistent Kylan Boswell as much as they need anything else on that team. And that doesn't mean that he's got to get 20. It means that he's got to be consistent. It means he's got to be tough. It means he can't be hunting shots. Because I love their team, and the problem they're going to have is the physicality in the paint, guarding the paint. If they're making threes, and if they're not making threes, are they getting the rebounds? So they got a chance to get to the foul line. But can they protect the rim? That would be their biggest question there. For Purdue, I think when they were struggling, Braden Smith was taking some off-balance shots. He was careless with the ball, and I shouldn't say careless. That's too strong a word. He wasn't as efficient with the ball. And you could see it, right? You could see it. The dribble was high. He was trying to make some plays that weren't there. But he's really settled in. I mean, he really has. And when you got two guys that are both being talked in the same breath for being player of the year in the league, like Braden Smith and like Kaufman-Renn, I mean, that's pretty strong. And I think Matt really excels he excels in a lot of things, but he really excels this time of year with managing his bench, managing his timeouts, getting to the bonus. And again, we can say all of those things, and if a team has a lot of live ball turnovers, or if a team not only can't get to the free throw line, but if they do, they can't make their free throws, which we're seeing a lot in tournaments right now, then all bets are off. But I like both of those teams. I think the game the other night was better than people think, but I think a Braden Smith that's efficient, confident, and playing within himself and doing what got him to this point makes them better. Obviously, Lawyer's got to make shots. But somebody is going to have you got to have multiple coverages right now to guard Trey Kaufman-Renn in the post because he's so good at getting over that left shoulder. It's crazy.
It's, Tom Crean is with us. Completely agree. And I did want to transition because you were talking about things that have been recognized and teams are doing better. And one of the things I've asked, and you would know as well as anybody, being the former head coach there, it seems like that IU played certainly at a higher level and more consistently when they consistently added Leal, Galloway, and Goody to the lineup with a lot of minutes. Is IU in-state understanding and pride as important as NIL money and transfer portal in this case of IU basketball? Because that's the way, at least, Tom, in the tail end of the season, it's looked in Bloomington.
Well, I don't have a great answer to that because those kids are all getting money too. But I do think there is the way you phrased it is right. Those kids, Anthony Leal, when you look at his numbers and when you look at the effect he's having on the game, and that's pretty strong. And I've said all along, I think I said it on your show one time, that the keys to their team basically were Goody and Leal because the fans rally around them. They energize their teammates. They energize the fans. Galloway, when he tries to do too much with the ball, when people really force him to his left, he struggles with that. I mean, you look at the Oregon game. They're right in that game at the end of the game, and he makes a couple of mistakes. When he's playing like he did the other day, playing within himself, ready to shoot the ball, not trying to do too much, that's important. And the three guys you just mentioned are all guys that play better in a supporting role where they don't have to be at the top of the scouting report, and they can play the game. They can get into long closeouts if need be. They can be the recipient of the ball being passed on drive and kick situations. And I think one of the keys has been Renault has played better. Malik has played much better. He still struggles to do anything with his right hand, which baffles me. But, I think he's better. I definitely think he is. I think if they're going to do anything, they're still going to have Ballo because when he runs the floor, when he gets sealed and it's a one-on-one, it's very, very hard to guard him. And I know he's not playing as much, and the ball is moving probably better because he's not in there as much. But you still have to find a way to utilize him, to get fouls, to get post-ups, to create some action in the paint, to create people moving, which gets your shooters freed up. But they're going to go as far. We can say all that. They're going to go as far as really when you count Leal as those four guards take them, because I still count Carlisle in that and Miles Rice. If they go into games and they start turning the ball over, it's not going to matter, what they do defensively. And that team just can't take chances. They're in a lot of the same situation we were at back in, I think it was 14-15, where we knew we were on the bubble and we needed a win in the Big Ten tournament to feel better about ourselves. And we ended up beating Northwestern, and then the next night we lost to Maryland. Well, that Northwestern win probably got us in, right? And you want to think you're in going in, but you're really not unless you win a game. And I think Indiana's in that position. But I think they deserve to be in it if they get that win, and I think their improvement is really shown.
Hey, Tom, in closing here, do you like the way that Scott Dolson's handling this with the outgoing Mike Woodson and then, knowing this during the season and then making a decision after the season on the next head coach?
Well, I don't really – there's got to be more to it than that, right? Obviously, I think they're doing –
Sure, there is, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, obviously, the discussions that went into that, but I would say this Mike deserves, as a legend in that program, for a school that takes so much pride in their former players and legends. He deserves the opportunity to go out. If he's going to go out, then he definitely deserved to go out on his terms in the way that it's playing out. And it's obviously working out pretty well at the fact that they're playing better. So I would give Scott tremendous kudos and whoever else is involved in the decision-making on that. And because that's not an easy situation, but it's actually going quite well for everybody involved, with the exception of Mike knows his last game that he plays there is going to be his last game coaching. But at least he's going out on his terms, and I think that's an extremely respectful way to do it. And I give Scott a lot of credit for that, because not everybody would have done that that's been there.
Speaking of job well done, you and our good friend Matt Taylor in the Ohio Valley at the Ford Center in Evansville. You know how awesome, because he is a really good friend of mine, and we do every Sunday together on the Colts radio leading up to Colts games. You guys are outstanding together. Well done.
Thank you. I knew of him, but we really didn't know each other, and we didn't meet till probably an hour and a half before the game, and I thought we clicked really well. And I love working with people that have energy and passion like that. And I've been really fortunate in all that, because I rarely work with somebody 2 times in a row. Occasionally I do, and I will in the NCAA tournament when I do that. But the bottom line is he was great. He was extreme. The preparation was unbelievable that he had going into that he shared with me and with us. It was just phenomenal. And I'd like to think that I'm really prepared when I go in, but I wasn't even holding a candle to him. So it was great to work with him.
He is my former producer as well as really good friend, and there is nobody more tedious with absolutely everything than he is. And, man, I thought you guys are great.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun because, as you know, I had a guy on my first 2 teams at Marquette and coached with me at Marquette, and then was on my first 2 staffs at Indiana. And Brian Baroni, it was his championship. And so to be able to call that game meant a lot to both of us. And I was as objective as could possibly be with the preparation. But at the end of the day, to see him win, that's like watching family get a champion or go to the NCAA tournament. So it was awesome.
That's great. You got to hang out in Evansville too, right, for a little bit? So there's nothing wrong with that.
I always liked Evansville. I went in the night before. You know what? I had never flown into the airport, and I just, instead of flying to Indy or Nashville, I connected through Atlanta from Sarasota and flew into Evansville. It's a great airport. I'd been to the executive one. I'd never been in that airport. I'd been to the private one, for events, when I was at Indiana, but I'd never been to the commercial one. And then stayed downtown at that DoubleTree. I love Evansville. Love the people. I didn't get out very much. I was really just in that downtown area around the Ford Center, but people were so cool. They were so great. I mean, it's always awesome for me to go back to Indiana. And makes me realize we were really fortunate to be there for the 9 years. And when you go back, it just rekindles that, and people are awesome.
You got it. Hey, we'll have you on again whenever you can, but thanks for doing what you do for us, too. We always love the insight and having you on the show, Tom. Thank you.
No problem. Anytime. Have a good night.
It's Tom Crean right there of ESPN, and I'll explain that. He and Matt Taylor were partners for the Ohio Valley Conference title game as well. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. Pivot, bar, and balcony. We'll come back final time. Colts situation today and a lot more for you coming up next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
JMV.
Give me my theme music!
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, Pantera. This is a shout-out to James right here. If you want to go see Pantera, number 9 at 239-1070, you can go. Thank you, Live Nation. Ruoff is going to be loud with the fellas from Pantera. Number 9 at 239-1070 will be able to go. Pivot Bar and Balcony, thank you all for joining us today. Man, what a loaded show. Tom Crean, Dusty May, Jeremiah Johnson of Pacers TV stopped by here. Greg Rakestraw, James Boyd. You know that Daniel Jones is going to be a member in free agency of the Colts, so we went over that. Kind of interesting, too. I mentioned the Pat McAfee response to Darius Butler on his show earlier today. Darius Butler said Colts Nation is torn on Anthony Richardson, right? And Pat's response was, quote, the more they learn about him, though, they probably wouldn't be torn if I had to guess. So that remains to be interesting, to say the least, right there. Cole writes this, in my opinion, Brissett made a lot more sense for what they needed. $14 million for one Daniel Jones. Check that out. You know who that is? Yeah, they just came by here a little bit earlier. I'm talking to the awesomeness that is Michelle right here. Hey, seriously, before the Pacer game later on tonight, of course, we got you covered here on The Fan with that. 7:30 is the tip time. 7 o'clock, your coverage begins later on tonight. Pivot Bar and Balcony, if you have the opportunity to come down here, whether it's tonight, on your way to the Pacer-Bucks game, or later on this week for the Big Ten Conference Tournament, this is a great spot. We absolutely love it here. And I also wanted to explain, so Tom Crean and Matt Taylor, and Matt, you're going to hear on the Colts Daily Update coming up here at the top of the hour, they were partnered up because Matt did play-by-play and Tom did the color analyst work for the Ohio Valley Conference Championship in Evansville, won by SIU Edwardsville. And I thought that they sounded tremendous together. Worked really well. And that can be hard, too, because all of a sudden you're doing that on the fly. But as Tom, it was funny, Tom referenced the attention to detail by Matt, and he could not be more accurate with that in mind. But I thought that they sounded great in that Ohio Valley Conference Championship. And Matt Taylor, you're going to hear coming up next on the Colts Daily Update. More on Daniel Jones, more on yesterday, which was day number 1 in free agency. Dev, great job out of you today. I want to thank our friends at Pivot Bar and Balcony for having us today. Thank you, Ethan. Thank you, Kevin. Everybody that's been out here, thank you very much on this glorious Tuesday. Pacer Hoops, 7:30 tip time, 7P coverage tonight on The Fan. Check it out. Matt Painter joins us tomorrow.